So you want to make a vegan lemon cake? Great choice. But what kind do you want to make? Do you want to make a simple one, like a simple pleasure, which you can knock up in next to no time, no faff? If you do, the first recipe in this video is going to be right up your street. But if you want to make something a bit more special, maybe you've got friends coming round or you just want a bit of a twist on the classic, and the second recipe in this video is going to ripple in some raspberry into 6 super cute lemon cakes, and we're going to make lemon raspberry ripple. Either one, simple or special, both are going to raise your vegan cake game. Let's get into it. Okay, quick heads up. If you've watched my first video already, you know I like to bake vegan cakes using pea protein. If you haven't watched that video, then I did a load of trials using 5 different methods of making vegan cakes. Pea protein was the clear winner, both in terms of taste and texture. It's also super quick to make cakes this way. So both my simple and my special cake in today's video are going to be made using the pea protein method. We also need to talk about lemons, and as the main dominant flavour in both of today's cakes, it's really important to get the level of lemon just about right. If you rely on fresh lemons, like a lot of recipes do, then it's going to be quite inconsistent results because lemons vary hugely. As beautiful as Mother Nature is, sometimes she makes really juicy lemons. So the juice of 2 lemons will give you a lot more juice than it would normally. And sometimes the zest can be a little bit bitter, other times beautiful and fragrant. So we're not going to rely completely on Mother Nature for this recipe. We're only going to use about half the flavour coming from fresh lemons. The other half is going to come from lemon extract. Final nerdy nugget on lemon extract. There's 2 different types. One is ethanol based and one is oil based. The recipe in the description below is ethanol based. You can definitely use the oil based one, but there's a little tweak you've got to make, which I'll come on to in the recipe section itself. Okay, enough nerdy talk. Let's get into the actual baking. Okay, straight into our simple lemon cake, and there's no portioning of individual cakes for this recipe. All our batter is going to go straight into a 1 pound loaf tin. I've got it lined, I've got it greased ready, I've got my oven on warming up at 160 degrees C. Straight into the wet mix, lemon extract. I've got 19 grams of that, and I'm using the ethanol based one here. If you're using the oil based one, you'll need 38 grams. Sunflower oil next. I'm using 113 grams of sunflower oil. I'm then going to add in the same weight in plant milk, 113 grams. I'm using almond milk for this recipe. I think it goes really well, but you can use any plant milk. Apple cider vinegar, I'm adding 18 grams. Lemon zest, 14 grams. So I'm using 253 grams of white caster sugar. You can use golden if you prefer, but I thought the white just complemented the sharpness of the lemon slightly better. I'm going to mix this now in my mixer, speed 3 for 6 minutes to partially dissolve the white sugar. And while that's mixing, we're going to weigh and sieve my dry ingredients. I've got 167 grams of all-purpose flour. I've got 4 grams of baking powder. I've got 2 grams of salt, and I'm using 42 grams of pea protein. So once my dry ingredients have been sieved through, I'm going to give them a good stir through to make sure the pea and the flour are really evenly distributed. You may already use pea protein at home if you're into smoothies or shakes, but if it's the first time you've used it, you may have seen it in the supermarket and thought that's a bit expensive, but online it's much cheaper. So now my wet ingredients have finished mixing, I'm going to add my dry ingredients. As soon as I've added these, I'm going to start the mixer up as soon as I can. Speed 1 for 30 seconds. As soon as that's finished mixing, I'm going to tip this out into my greased tin. I'm going to give this a quick level off. I'm going to bake this straight away. I'm going to bake at 160 degrees C for 68 minutes. So my cake's fully cooled and now I'm going to ice it. I'm going to use 130 grams of icing sugar and 24 grams of fresh lemon juice. I'm going to add my lemon juice into my icing sugar, and then I'm going to whisk it until it's quite smooth. As you can see, this is quite a thick icing. I'm after quite a solid icing on my plain cake. You can see there's a few lumps still in there, so I'm going to keep going. Now this is going to be quite thick to pour, so I'm going to sit this in a bowl of hot water for a couple of minutes to make it a bit runnier. So as you can see, that looks lovely and runny now, and that's going to be really easy to pour over my cake, so we are good to go. I'm going to finish off by grating some lemon zest over the top. So I'm going to resist temptation to taste this now. I'm going to wait until both cakes are finished and taste them side by side. So the first way I'm going to make this one a bit more special is I'm going to make individual cakes to make them a bit cuter. The second way is to use an interesting shape. I'm going to use a fluted silicone mold for this one, but if you haven't got one of those, no problem. You could just use a tulip muffin case like this and make a fancy muffin instead. And then for the ripple through the middle, it's a soft fruit ripple. I love raspberries, so I'm going to use raspberries, but if you want to use blackberries or blueberries, anything that gives a nice contrasting color in the batter so people can see the ripple, that would work best. So I'm using 72 grams of raspberries for my smoosh. If you're using fresh raspberries, you can do it the old school way, crush them up with a fork, give them a little whisk, and then use a spoon to make your ripple. But if you're using frozen raspberries, as I am today, or you're using a bigger batch size, maybe doing a bake sale, something like that, then this is the way to get a really smooth smoosh. And once they're out of the blender, I'd use a bottle to really get nice control over your ripples. Onto the wet mix, and it's the same method as the first recipe. I'm going to start with lemon extract. I've got 18 grams of ethanol-based extract, so the same rule applies. If you're using an oil-based one, you want 36 grams. And then I'm going to go use sunflower oil, 96 grams of this. I'm using 93 grams of plant milk. And in this recipe, I'm using almond milk. I'm then going to use 15 grams of apple cider vinegar, 12 grams of lemon zest. Then I'm going to add 217 grams of white castor sugar. And then I'm going to mix this on speed 3 for 6 minutes. So while my wet ingredients are mixing, I'm going to sieve my dry ingredients apart from my ground almonds, which won't go through the sieve. And I'm going to start with 123 grams of white spelt flour. I'm then going to add 39 grams of pea protein, 3 grams of baking powder, and 2 grams of salt. Now I'm using a stone ground spelt here, so it won't all go through the sieve because it's a little bit coarser than the all-purpose flour we were using in the first recipe. I'm going to use my brown scraper to help it through the last little bit. Got 21 grams of ground almonds. I'm going to stir everything through until it's really evenly distributed. You want to see a nice, really even colour on this one before the final mix. So now I'm going to add my dry ingredients to my wet ingredients. And I'm going to mix on speed 1 for 30 seconds. So the ground almonds and lemon zest in this recipe, they never completely smooth out, so don't be tempted to mix it for a bit longer or you'll get a really chewy crumb. Now I'm going to fill my molds, and I'm going to start with a little bit of batter in each mold. I'm then going to add a little swirl of raspberry smoosh. I'm going to repeat that by putting a bit more batter and a bit more raspberry. Repeat it for a final time with more batter and more raspberry, and I'm going to finish off with some batter on top. Don't worry if the top doesn't look too pretty, because this is actually going to be the bottom of the cake when it comes out of the oven. Okay, so now I'm going to get these straight in the oven at 170 degrees C for 30 minutes. So our little fluted cakes are out of the oven and cool. At the moment, they don't look amazingly pretty, but you can see if I just pop them out of the mold, they already look nice. You can see the raspberries there on the side as well, and see those flutes. And that's before I've iced them. So now I'm going to make the icing exactly the same way as I did on the simple cake. I've got 156 grams of icing sugar and 29 grams of fresh lemon juice. I'm going to add the lemon juice into the icing sugar. Then I'm going to give it a quick whisk. I'm going to try and get rid of as many lumps as I can. And now this is going to be quite a thick icing, just like before. And I'm going to warm this up in a bowl of hot water to make sure it's nice and runny. So while that's warming up, I'm going to pop the rest of my cakes out of the mold, ready for icing. You've got to be a little bit careful at this point. It can be a little bit fragile. So now my icing's nice and runny. I'm going to transfer this to my faithful squeezy bottle. So now I'm going to pour on my icing onto these cakes. I like to ice just half of them. And generally I pick the half that hasn't got the raspberries showing. If you want to colour your icing, for example, hold back a little bit of the raspberry smoosh from the ripple earlier on, and then add it into this and you'll get a nice pink icing. So at this point you can freestyle it a little bit. I'm using freeze-dried raspberries, fresh raspberries and lemon zest. I'd love to see how yours turn out, so don't forget to tag your photos on Instagram so I can check out your skills. Okay, lemon's a big favourite of mine, so I can't wait to taste these cakes. It's been smelling of lemon all day in here, so let's get stuck in. I'm going to start with the loaf cake. I'm really happy with the crumb on this. That looks great. Personally, I don't like lemon drizzle. Some of them can be a little bit soggy. This is exactly what I was going for. Okay, now I'm going to taste it. That's superb. Really good. Light, moist, just about the right level of lemon. For a simple cake, you can't go wrong with this recipe. Now look at these lovelies. They're almost too cute to cut, but I want to see that ripple inside. So let's get tasting. Oh, that's great. See a nice bit of the raspberry ripple through there. Lovely crumb, fleck of lemon zest. Really happy with that. That is delicious. The raspberry packs a fruity punch. It doesn't overwhelm the lemon. It's just a great combination. Hope that's got you pumped to make this recipe at home. There's a link to the recipe in the description below. Please let me know what you thought about this video, and don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon to get the heads up on my next video. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one.